main thing I've learned in my lifetime so far is to value relationships, all of them.
That was the main thing. Timeless wisdom shared by our wise guests here on the Main Thing podcast. It resonated with us, perhaps rather deeply. You spoke up. You said, we want more from these wise thought leaders. We heard you loud and clear, and so we are reconnecting with a few of our most popular guests from seasons 1 and 2. We will revisit those guests and revisit their wisdom, their main thing. What will we find? Some say true north will always be true north. Others say there's nothing permanent except change. Has it remained the primary driving force in their life? Or has something new taken that place of prominence in their heart and mind? Here in this special episode of Wisdom Revisited, we'll find out how each prior guest has applied and perhaps evolved their wisdom. Here we go. Helena Brantley, hello and welcome back to the Main Thing podcast.
Hi, Skip. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, you know, that clip that our listeners just heard was recorded in September 2020 and published in October 2020, nearly 2 years ago.
Wow.
A lot of water has gone under the bridge since then, hasn't it?
Indeed. And I don't know if your experience is like mine, but I have such a hard time of concept of time since the start of the pandemic. So,
yes. Yeah. And everyone I talk to is like, okay, have we just been through some sort of weird time wrinkle or something? I think we have.
Yeah,
I really think we have. Yeah.
Life-altering, mind-altering experience, to say the least.
Helena, let's just really quickly remind folks who they're listening to. This person with the authenticity and the great voice is a public relations executive from Northern California, the Oakland, Alameda area. Mm-hmm. And you are the founder of Red Pencil Public Relations and Marketing.
Right. And I describe myself as the principal. That's the term that I use. But yeah.
And you, prior to that, had just a very diverse and really interesting career in public relations. You've lived on the East Coast and the West Coast, and your bio says that you really are passionate about helping thinkers and entrepreneurs convey their big ideas, most often in book format.
Right. Yeah, no, I work pretty exclusively now with scholars and subject matter experts and publishers to promote nonfiction books.
Yeah. What else should they know about you?
One other thing that might be interesting for your listeners to know about me is I love to read and work with scholars and learn and all of those things, as you said. I am also a big home cook. I love to cook and I love to eat and I love to talk about and read about food.
There we go.
So that's just a little side thing about me that may or may not be interesting to some of your listeners.
For sure. Absolutely. Give us something that a new dish that you tried recently that was like stepping out a little bit.
This is like the best question. Yeah, I love this.
Okay.
So I recently listened to Andy Baragani, I hope I'm saying his name correctly, on the New Yorker Radio Hour. And he was talking through a recipe that's very popular on Epicurious, the website.
Yeah.
And I so enjoyed listening to him talk about this sort of rationale for writing this book, this new cookbook that he has, and the inspiration being, partly from the Bay Area, being from, I believe he's from Iran. It was just so fascinating to me. And they're cooking. He's with the reporter and they're cooking this particular dish.
Do you get the sounds of the kitchen?
You do.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. I love that. You can almost smell it. You can't kind of imagine this whole thing. So based on that, I went and bought the cookbook because I was just like, oh, he's from the Bay Area. I know Chez Panisse, a lot of cooks, have come out of there. And I made this spicy cauliflower ragu with spaghetti that was incredible. Ooh. There was no meat in this ragu. It's just cauliflower. And there's like 5 or 6 ingredients, like onions and garlic and tomato paste. Oh my gosh, it was so delicious. Now, my husband and I disagree. I say, I do not miss the meat.
Okay.
And he says, no, you kind of miss the meat. So, but it was just such a fun experience to sit around with the girls, my husband and 2 girls, and to try this meal. And so I'd highly recommend. The book is called the cook you want to be. And he talks a little bit about that title and how he arrived at that title in that New Yorker radio hour. And yeah, so that was something that was fun and delicious and new. I just prepared, cauliflower in a way that was so different for me and enjoyable.
It sounds great. And how fun is that? Just fun to do. So
Yes.
we're all hungry now, but we'll, Helena, if you'll drop me that title in an email, maybe a link if you have it, we'll put that in the show notes.
Oh, I would love to. I would love to.
For our hungry and curious listeners.
I would love to. And I posted about it on Instagram, just so you know,
okay.
On Fridays. That's the fun time that I get to, mostly talk about and post about things that I'm not working on, but that I'm just enjoying. So, the hashtag Friday Reads is for everybody. Just share what you're reading, and so you'll find it there. But I'd be happy to send you the link to that.
I love it. The clip we heard, your main thing from episode 31, September 2020, you said value relationships, all of them. And I just wonder if that's still your main thing, or has your guiding wisdom or something new or primary? We all have several things that we live by. But is your primary, your true north, is that still it, or has it evolved or changed?
No, it's still it, honestly.
Yeah.
And yeah, I love thinking about this. So thank you again for the invitation to come back and to talk with you. Because I wanted to have something new and fresh to say. But honestly, since we spoke 2 years ago, I think this idea of valuing the relationships, all of them, is probably more important and more relevant and more poignant even than before, if possible.
Yeah. I mean, you don't have, I share that belief with you. I'm a people person, a relationship person. I've been described as a practitioner of infinite horizon networking, which means that relationships go on and they never end. They're not transactional. Yeah, I mean, I get it. I hear it. That's working for you and still resonating with you. Let's be honest. It's not easy to ask for help or talk about money. Hey, it's Skip here, and many listeners like you continue to ask me, what do you need to continue to develop and build this show? Well, for context, it takes our team about 15 hours of work to produce each one of these packages of wisdom that we deliver to you in podcast form. Really, what we need as we enter season 3 of this show is funding to cover our costs. So in response, I formed a site on the Patreon platform where you can elect to become a supporting patron of the Main Thing podcast. Now, there are 3 levels you might consider, ranging from $6 to $27 per month. It's all safe and secure, and you can explore the options at patreon.com/themainthingpodcast. Now, how will we use the funding? Funds provided by you and other patrons will be used to defray the costs of production, promotion, and our recurring technology expenses each month. In short, you will be helping to keep this pipeline of wisdom flowing. Thanks. Helena, I stumbled across a little insight or a little gem I wanted to bounce off of you as we're talking about your main thing, value relationships, all of them. Here it is. I want you to evaluate this. Try it on for size. If you disagree, my feelings won't be hurt. If you have thoughts to share on it, I would love to hear them. So here it is. When we are living on the right path, if we are living in concert with our purpose, if we're aligned, the vector of our goings is aligned with the vector of our purpose, that we're going to continue to meet people that fill us up and that help us grow and that we enjoy.
Yes, I agree with that. But what I would add to that is what I have found in 47 years, soon to be 48 years, is that sometimes the people that we meet on the path don't initially bring us joy, are not always like-minded, are not always aligned.
Yeah.
But with a commitment to kind of value the relationships that we encounter along the way, I do think that sometimes what we are meant to get from those relationships can be helpful and eye-opening and uplifting and joyful, even when they don't always present that way initially.
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely agree.
That's the challenge, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's the challenge because we all want, I mean, I'm like everyone else in the sense that I want to have meaningful, helpful, healthy, joyful engagement with people. And yet what I'm finding through the challenge and the difficulty and the disappointment even that I'm experiencing in my relationships, that if I can just hold tight, and kind of go along for the ride sometimes, remember who I am, what I value, what I consider important. If I can hold tight to those, sometimes there's like a surprise encounter on the other side of, what might seem like a difficult person or a difficult encounter with someone. I mean, I'm thinking about a couple of different experiences just in the last 6 months. And even this morning, having to be reminded of a situation that has created real anger and frustration. But I'm having to remind myself, why am I part of this organization? And to kind of keep my eyes on the prize, so to speak, in the short term as to, why I'm involved in this organization and what the purpose of it and how it's helpful in the world. But I feel like that's really where I am right now, is enjoying the kind of easier relationships that, like you and I, for example, where we just kind of meet because Rachel Bell, suggested that we be in touch. And then, it's been a wonderful
It just clicked.
Experience of getting to know you. Right.
Yeah.
But there are also these conversations and experiences that I'm having that are testing me. And I feel that I'm on, the path that I'm supposed to be on. And I'm also finding that it's bumpy and I'm angry and I'm frustrated.
Yeah.
And it feels like a test.
Yeah. That's a great addition to my thought. That builds that out incredibly well. Helena, when you and I met in episode 31, I encourage folks to go back and listen to that because it's just rich and important and wonderful. There was another soundbite that you probably noticed that I clipped this soundbite, and it's what I used to promote our episode. It wasn't your main thing, but it was something that struck me, helped me. It was something that I needed to hear at that time. And I've just held on to it. You may or may not even have taken notice of this, but what you said was, Skip, every day I spend intentional time removing the hardness from my heart. Do you remember saying that?
Yeah, I think about this often. Yes.
I hope you would reflect on that for us. Give us an update on it. What does that practice look like for you today? I just loved hearing that.
Yeah, it's so nice to have things that you've said and you don't even realize necessarily that you've said them or where you've said them and when you've said them. It's nice to have them, shared with you. And yeah, I mean, what comes up for me, first of all, is that saying and that thought, which has become a practice, I can trace it back to an Instagram image I read maybe 5 years ago. I think the woman's name is Sophia. Can't even remember. She runs something out of LA. But it was on her Instagram page and it said, "Keep your heart soft."
Yeah.
And, that in concert with, I read a lot of spirituality. I read everything. I read Buddhism. I read Christianity. I read Judaism.
Yeah.
Recently been reading more about Sikhism. And also there's a wonderful book by Sarah Blondin, who is a Canadian writer and one of my favorite people who leads guided meditations.
Okay, cool.
She talks a lot about this, but to make some sense of this is the most challenging thing that I find and the most important and rewarding, which is that when I can remember, and I can't say that I'm doing it every day as I may have been doing, during the closer to the pandemic, the start of the medium of time of the pandemic.
Yeah.
But it is really like a prayer and a practice to remember when the temptation comes to choose anger, to learn how to keep my heart soft so that I can be open to other ways of interpreting what's happening. And I would love to tell you that I do it all the time and that I never get angry. That would not be true.
Yeah.
But I love this idea, this practice. Most mornings I spend about half an hour reading, writing, and sitting. And, this is part of that practice.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost like, I was raised in the Christian church. So I was raised with this idea of, putting on your armor.
Yeah, for sure.
For going out into the world, right?
Yeah.
And I can remember my father using various sort of analogies over the years, but that was the one that really stuck, this idea that, when you go out in the world, you don't know what you will encounter. So if you put on your armor, which for him meant praying in the morning,
mm-hmm.
You've got your best possible defense come what may, right?
Right.
And so this is really just an extension of that, right?
Yeah.
It's an extension of help me to remember that the goal is to keep my heart soft for all of the things that will come my way that will upset me or,
mm-hmm.
Could upset me or disappoint me. And it's really interesting because just this morning, I was wrestling with how to respond to something that came my way.
Okay.
Yesterday. And I was really angry about it because, there was a little bit of ego involved on my part, but I was very upset about the email that was sent to me.
Yeah.
It was me and another person.
Yeah.
And I needed to draft a response because I needed to feel like I needed to just kind of get my thoughts together about what am I feeling? Let me just put it on. And so I put it on the note screen early this morning, typing on my phone. And then I just sat and it was almost like I was saying, God, I know these are not the right words.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
this is my emotional response to what I'm feeling.
Sure.
Oh, please just help me. And so I was led to listen to a guided meditation. And after that, I could feel my whole body just relax.
Oh,
you know what I
wow.
mean? Like
yes.
I had been so tense and, I wasn't able to sleep. And then I literally said those words. I listened to an 11-minute meditation, went back to sleep, and the words came to me and I was able to send that email off this morning. And one of the things I'll say that I think is related to this idea of keeping your heart soft is that I have learned, and I don't know if you've experienced anything like this, but sometimes I will draft a response to something and I can still feel the tension in my body as if it's telling me, no, that's not quite right.
Ooh,
and then when I get to the place where I can articulate what I'm feeling, always being true and honest and clear, but usually with softer language, my whole body will just relax.
Oh, wow.
As if to say, yes, that's right. So
yeah, that's neat. So you're being mindful of those physiological signals, which is awesome. Awesome self-awareness and having the discipline to not respond in anger. That's just great stuff.
It's practice.
Yeah. It takes work. I think about hardness. For me, that can be sometimes anger. I come from Norwegian, cold-blooded. We don't get a lot, not a lot of anger, more calm, but definitely can be resentment, hurt feelings, those kinds of things, unhealthy feelings. They're hardness. And so since you landed that idea on me nearly 2 years ago, I've put a lot of work in that area. And really, I think the next year, 2021, my focus word for the year that I set the intention in January was release. And when you were talking about your experience this morning, that word came back into my conscious thought, came back into my heart as we work to remove the hardness from our heart. Sometimes that involves a release of thoughts or feelings, or maybe even physical tension in our bodies.
Yeah. So, I love that you had release as your focus word for the year. That's great. That's good.
Yeah. I want to switch gears, Helena, and talk about what you've been up to lately. And I happen to know, because we stay in touch and, we're friends, that you have become a public speaker. And this was a big stride forward out of your comfort zone into something new. You did a keynote speech back in April, I think. Tell us about that, what you did, how it felt, and what have been some of the takeaways from that.
Oh, well, thank you. And yes, this was very much moving outside of my comfort zone. People who don't know me, and they think, oh, well, you're working public relations and you're promoting. And so, there's an assumption around
doing podcasts and stuff.
Yeah. And there's an assumption that there's a comfort with public speaking, which is just not my experience. My husband keeps challenging me on this, but I am an introvert. I may have become more of an ambivert, since 12 years ago when I started Red Pencil. And then maybe during the pandemic, we keep joking that maybe I've become a little bit more of an ambivert. But I think it's important to say I'm shy and I do not enjoy public speaking.
Okay.
And it's sort of an odd thing for a person who promotes people. I was invited by the Publishing Professional Network, which is a Bay Area organization and association, to deliver a 20-minute keynote about the future of publishing. It was exciting and terrifying.
Yeah, terrifying. What? Helena, we want you to tell us about the future of publishing.
Right. What this confronting my fears did was to confirm that my joy does not come from public speaking. Okay. My joy comes from the work that I do to get the people who have spent years working on things to be in front of the people and the crowds that's going to help change and alter the way we think about things. I might have one or two things to say, in a given year, but this was not where I get my joy. And it was important for me to understand that even with all the time and preparation, I can do it. I can do it well, but that's not joy for me.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Because my husband literally was saying, why don't you do more? No, what this did for me was to clarify that I can do it. And I can do it pretty well.
Yeah.
But no, my joy comes from other things.
What a valuable takeaway. Yeah. Is there anything today that you hoped we would cover or you hoped that I would ask you about that we haven't? And perhaps it's an intention or an insight for our audience that you want to share, our audience of personal growth-oriented wisdom seekers. Anything at all that you want to close with?
There's just a lot that weighs on my mind. And I would just say that I don't think that I'm alone with, in terms of your listening audience here, just in a place of having to try to balance so many heavy things in our personal lives, in our individual lives, in our communities, in our country, in our world. And so I think I would say, let us please try to keep our hearts soft. And as we move through all of the challenges of the moment, there are so many challenges for so many of us, different, in different ways. And so I think that's it. I think I would say, I love that your listeners, with the variety of podcasts that are available, that you have this growing community of people who enjoy what you do, find value in the time that they spend listening to the people that you have amassed to share the wisdom that we have individually, so that hopefully it's helpful for those of us who are listening. And so thank you is really heavy on my heart now to you, Skip, and to those people who said they were interested in hearing what's happening in my little small corner of the world. Thank you. I appreciate you. I appreciate the time to just sit and think with these questions. And I wish you well as you continue to grow your community of listeners.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm going to keep going. I'm going to keep on going.
Okay.
Helena, thank you so much for your time and your heart and your words today. We'll stay in touch, and this has made my day. Thank you.
You're welcome. You take good care.
Wow, that goes by incredibly fast, doesn't it? Time flies when you're hacking wisdom. I hope you're left wanting more. Sync up with us again next time on The Main Thing for 9 more minutes of wisdom.